Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at the quadratic formula. If ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There are a couple of things to keep in mind. The first one is that one side of the equation must be 0. We have to make sure that we put everything on one side of the equal sign. Another is that 2a is dividing the entire thing. It's not just dividing the square root. That negative b is also being divided by 2a. And then the third thing to remember is that b squared is always non-negative. Any number squared will never be negative. It's always positive or 0 if b itself is 0. So as long as we keep these things in mind, then we should be just fine. So we're going to do, I think, 4 examples of this. So x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. A is 1. Remember, if there's nothing in front of the variable, it's a 1. B is negative 5, and C is 6. So x equals negative b, so a double negative, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We do some cleaning up. Again, double negative makes it 5, plus or minus negative 5 squared is positive 25. 4 times 1 times 6 is 24, all over 2. Order of operations, I do 25 minus 24, which is 1. The square root of 1 is also 1. So I get 5 plus or minus 1 over 2. So I'm going to do 5 plus 1 divided by 2 and 5 minus 1 divided by 2. So 5 plus 1 over 2 is 3, and 5 minus 1 over 2 is 2. So I get 2 and 3, which are 2 rational solutions. If what I get out are rational solutions, things that look like they could be a fraction, that means that my equation was factorable. And if we go back to solving equations by factoring, this guy is very easily factorable. But we're not going to get into that because we're using the quadratic formula. So as another example, 2x squared minus 7x minus 5 equals 0. A is 2, B is negative 7, C is negative 5. I plug them in where they need to go into the quadratic formula, and then I start to simplify. Again, I've got a double negative for B, so positive 7, plus or minus the square root of negative 7 squared is 49. 4 times 2 times negative 5 is negative 40. So if I'm subtracting a negative 40, I have another double negative. And then again, order of operations, I'll add the 49 and the 40, and I get 7 plus or minus root 89 all over 4. I cannot simplify this any further. There's no factor of 89 that's a perfect square. So this is my most simplified exact answer. Depending on how the question is worded, you might want to give the exact answer. Otherwise, you can plug it into your calculator and come up with the 2 different decimal approximations. And if we do that, we get that it's approximately negative 0.6085, so that's the 7 minus root 89 over 4. And then 7 plus root 89 over 4 gives us 4.108. And those are 2 irrational solutions. So those are 2 of the possibilities we can get. We can have 2 rational solutions, which meant I could have factored it, or 2 irrational solutions, which means I couldn't have factored it. So the fact that they're irrational means it's not factorable, so it's unfactorable. Also known as prime. Okay. So I couldn't have factored it even if I wanted to. So let's try another one. 9x squared plus 24x plus 16 equals 0. A is 9, B is 24, C is 16. Plug them into where they go. Simplify it. So 24 squared is 576. 4 times 9 times 16 is also 576. When I simplify that, I get the square root of 0, and the square root of 0 is 0. Negative 24 plus or minus 0 is negative 24. And then negative 24 over 18, I can simplify down to negative 4/3. And this gives me one real solution, which is also rational, which means that it was factorable. The reason that I have one solution means that it was factorable into a square. And if I factored it, I would have 3x plus 4 squared equals 0. So then 3x plus 4 equals 0, and that gives me my one solution of negative 4/3. So again, when I have one solution, it means when I factored it, it would have been a square. So I can have two solutions, I can have one solution. And there's one other possibility, and we'll see that next. So our last example is 3x squared minus 5x plus 4 equals 0. A is 3, B is negative 5, C is 4. I plug them in, I simplify, and I get 5 plus or minus root 25 minus 48 all over 6. 25 minus 48 is negative 23. And I get 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 23 over 6. The fact that I have the square root of a negative means I have a problem, and it means that my answers are imaginary. There are no real solutions, but there are two imaginary. Remember, imaginary is from the fact that I cannot take the square root of a negative number. Okay, so those are my possibilities. I can have two rational answers, two irrational answers, one rational answer, or two imaginary answers, which means no real solutions. When asked to solve it, make sure that if it is imaginary, you still give me this fraction here. I still want that as your answer. You can tell me that you know that it's imaginary, but give me that whole thing anyway. Okay, so read through the book, try out the questions for homework, and let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.